Hi, it's Adam Smith, the campus pastor here at South Hills Corona, and I'm not with you guys this weekend. I actually decided to take some time away, just me and my wife, to kind of hang out and rest up and reconnect, just the two of us. And in my place, as we are jump-starting this brand new series called Regifting, we have got an incredible guest speaker for you. And in fact, having him here is a bit of a regift in and of itself, because it is our founding and lead pastor, the guy who jump-started this campus almost 21 years ago and then gifted it to me, and now I'm regifting the stage back to him to get us going as we start thinking today over the next few weeks about the stuff that we have and where it came from and what we're to do with it and why all of that matters, especially when we're talking about the search for meaning in life. And so I want you to do me a huge favor, and that is this weekend, would you show him how we do things here in Corona in case he's forgotten, and give him a huge, giant, enormous standing ovation as we welcome to the stage our founding lead and senior pastor, the Reverend himself, the Apostle Christopher Sonkson.
Adam, thank you. Yes. Very kind of you. You can be seated. Adam does that every single time because you know I don't like it. Just making me mad. How's everybody doing today? Awesome, man. It is so good to be able to be with you guys today. And my name is Chris. I am the lead and founding pastor, as Pastor Adam mentioned on the screen. We have multiple campuses all throughout the world now. We actually just launched our 10th campus, and one of those is in South Africa, Johannesburg. And so we launched there. And so we're launching campuses. We're doing a lot of coaching now. We help churches across the nation. Upwards towards 700 churches a month are receiving our resources and how we're helping them. So it's a big global vision to develop leaders and create churches that people love to come to. So it's really good to have all of you guys here. That's a little bit about me in case you're kind of new here. And so that's awesome. So grab your Bible if you got one. We're going to go to Matthew chapter 25. We're going to take a look at that. Matthew chapter 25. Today, we kick off a brand new series through all of our campuses called Regifting. And Regifting is a series about money. Now, some people freak out when they hear about money. Well, actually, they don't freak out at all until they hear about it in the church. Then they freak out. But say money with me. 1, 2, 3. Look at you. You even smiled when you said it. It's a big deal in our life, and you know, you might have a history or an experience that maybe the church that you grew up in or used to go to talked about money all the time, and maybe it was abused or misused, whatever. I can't speak to any other church. I can only speak to ours. We talk about it a couple times a year because it's such a big part of our life, and I love talking about money. I do. And the reason I like talking about it is because I know there's a God in heaven who loves us, who wants the best for us, and wants to bless our lives. And we miss out on so much of what the Scripture has to say about this subject because all we think of it in the negative way rather than seeing it in the way that God wants us to see it. Matter of fact, Jesus spoke about it a lot. Jesus would always tell parables. Those were stories. And these stories that Jesus told, there were 35 of them in the New Testament. 16 of them had to do with money. Matter of fact, God has more to say in the Bible about money than he does about heaven and hell combined. God's got a lot to say about the subject called money. So we're going to get into it today. We're not talking about tithing. We're not talking about any of that. We're just going to get into the subject called money and kind of God's opinion of it and what he wants to do with it in our lives. So if you got a Bible, go to Matthew chapter 25. When I used to be regularly speaking here, now we have all these campuses and I kind of travel around. But we, when we were regularly speaking here, my wife and I years ago, we had this car that didn't run. Not much has changed. We still have a car that barely runs. But this guy told us, hey, man, he says, you got to go to this mechanic. And I had met him once before. Right off McKinley was this mechanic. So I go down there and I said, okay, here's my car, and it's a piece of junk, and it's not running good. Fix it. He goes, oh, I'll give you a call at the end of the day. So I said, okay. End of the day comes, he doesn't call. Anybody ever had that happen before with your car? Then the next morning, okay, sorry about that. I'll call you at the end of the day. At the end of the day, he doesn't call. The third day, I called him up, and I said, look, I need a rental car. I need something. You've had my car. You haven't done anything with it. And he says to me, he's off McKinley, he says, hey, just come on down. He goes, I don't have a rental car service. He goes, but I have a couple cars that I own, and you can just borrow one of them. I don't know who this guy is. I'm like, okay, that's great. I get down there. I said, hey, let me borrow your car. And so he gives me the keys, and He gives me the keys. I turn the corner, and it's his car, and it's a Porsche. And I was like, I like this guy a lot now. Now, I don't get into cars. That's not my thing, but I love Porsche. And I'm like, man, this is amazing. He said, you can borrow it for a couple days. I go, take your time on my car, whatever it takes, dude. Like a month, a year, whatever it takes for you to fix my car, feel free to take your time. And so I get the car, and man, I'm just driving everywhere. My wife said, I'll stop and get milk. So I went to Palm Springs, got milk. I loved having this car. It was amazing. A couple more days go by, and he calls me up. And I'm not even kidding. I know I shouldn't have done this. I'm just confessing as a pastor here. I started avoiding his calls. I was like, nope, that's him. Click. Send a voicemail. Send a voicemail. Send a voicemail. I'm like, I don't want him to get a hold of me. I want to drive his car, And he finally, I accidentally picked up the phone. He's like, well, I'm on vacation, dude. I'm in Egypt, whatever. And I make up all these dumb reasons. Finally, after about 7 or 8 days, he finally leaves a message like, dude, you got to return my car. Your car's here. And so here's the thing. I pull up, I drop off the car. The crazy thing is, it's his car, and I'm mad that he's making me give it back to him, which is nuts, because it's not my car to begin with. Now, you've probably done that before, maybe. Maybe you borrowed a lawnmower from someone or some patio furniture for a little party you were having. They totally forgot about it. 6 months go by, they call you up and say, hey, can I have that back? And you're like, and you're mad about it. Like, well, it's your lawnmower, but now what am I going to do? You're mad. Because here's the thing. The longer that now listen, the longer you hold on to a possession of something, the more you think that it's actually yours. And we do that a lot with people, but we actually do that a lot with God. When in reality, it all belongs to Him. Look what it says in James chapter 1, verse 17. Put it on the screen for me. James chapter 1, verse 17 says, read it out loud with me, everybody in the house. Every desirable and beneficial gift comes out of heaven. Everything is God's. Every dollar that we have, every car that we drive, every house that we live in, every desirable and beneficial gift comes out of heaven. Here's where the tension lies in. The tension lies when God comes along and says, I want you to give that money. I want you to help out those people. I want you to help start this thing. I want you to do something good that's kingdom-minded, and I want you to give up some of it. And we wrestle with that tension. And you know where that tension comes from? It comes from the fact that we actually think it's ours when it isn't ours to begin with. Let me give you a statement that's coming on the screen. You might want to take a picture of it, write it down, send it out, social media, whatever. It is the thread of everything this morning. We'll repeat it several times. Put it on the screen for me. Here's the thread and the fact. You don't share your resources with God. He shares them with you. That's a fact. You don't share your resources with God. Look, man, I'm giving to God. No, yeah, I guess you are, but it's His to begin with. And let me help liberate you this morning. I got so many people coming out of the services going, wow, I never thought of it that way. And if they would start thinking of it that way, it'll liberate you. When you begin to start thinking in your mind and get the mindset, change your mindset today and go, okay, it's not really mine, it's really His. And I'm not sharing my resources with God. He's actually sharing His resources with me. And it's liberating once you come to that point and you realize that it all belongs to God. Now, there is a parable that talks about that in Matthew chapter 24, and I want to take a look at it. We're going to pick it up at verse 14. Parables are always stories that Jesus would tell that would sort of relate a point that He was trying to make. Verse 14. Jesus told this story. Again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted, what's the word after the word entrusted? Come on, everybody say it. What's the word? He entrusted his money to them while he was gone. So this master, this boss, this guy has a lot of money. He brings his 3 servants together and he says, I'm going to go on a trip and I'm going to give you some of the money and I want you to do good with the money. But here's the thing. It's a 16-verse parable, and the very first thing right out of the gate is the master setting us straight. The master's saying, it's not your money, it's mine. He went on a long trip and he entrusted his money with them. It's the mindset. 16 verses, and the very first verse of this parable is, oh, by the way, that's mine. It's not yours, so let's get that really straight. Once they get that straight, it liberates you. So that's the first thing. He comes out of the gate and he says, that actually belongs to me. I remember telling a story and years ago when I was here on this, speaking regularly at this campus, my son was just 9 years old, and my daughter is only a year older than him, and which made my wife pregnant for 2 years. That was glorious. And so he's 9 years old, and he's playing baseball. He played baseball all the way through college, his senior year. And so he's playing baseball, whatever, and we go down to Promenade, or wherever it is that we play baseball at the Little League field. And every Saturday morning, that was our routine. Get the little lawn chairs, the little ice chest, and we go down there. And like clockwork, my daughter would sit right next to me, and by the second inning, she'd be going, "Dad, can I have $1?" Because she wants to go to the snack bar. Not like she wants to go give it to a homeless person. She's, just going to keep it for herself. And so she's like, "Dad, can I have $1?" I'm like, "Here we go." So I always had $1 ready, And sometimes I'd throw her off, give her a peso or a Bitcoin or something. And so I said, "Okay, here's $1." She goes over. Now, this one specific Saturday, it was like 10 in the morning. She gets $1. She goes, snack bar. She comes back. She got a bag of Skittles. And I'm sitting right there. I look at them. I'm like, "That sounds pretty good." I go, "Hey, give me a little bit of those Skittles." She looks at me. She goes, "No." She's like 9 years old. I go, "What did you say?" And she said, "No, I don't want to give them to you, Dad. I want them all for me." I said, "I didn't ask for the whole bag. I just wanted a little handful, And she's like, "No." And so, needless to say, I needed a reminder of a few things. So I sat next to her and I said, "Let me help you out with a few things." And I literally told her, I go, "Number one, those are my Skittles. Like all of them are mine. Not a handful. They're all mine. Number two, I'm bigger than you. If I want, I'll just take them. And number three," my daughter's named Grace. "Grace, number three is this. I have enough money to buy more Skittles than you could possibly imagine." Now, let's take that and move that over to God. I wonder if God ever thinks that, and we're going to see that in this story. Hey, by the way, that's all mine anyway. "Oh, God, I don't know if I can give it." "Oh, wait a minute. You can't give me what's mine? Oh, and by the way, I'm bigger than you, and I'll just take it away. And thirdly, I can give you more than you could possibly ever imagine." That's this principle that comes flying out, understanding that you and I don't share our resources with God. He shares them with us. Now, let's pick up where we left off. Let's go to verse 15. "He gave 5 bags of silver to one, now that one servant got 5 bags, 2 bags of silver to another servant, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. He then left on a trip. The servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money." Now, here's the thing. 5 bags of silver. This isn't silver, so don't come running up here after the service. "I'll get it." No, it's not. There's just some pennies in there that kind of makes it sound like silver. I know some of you people. Anyway, he goes over and he says, "To the one I give 5 bags of silver. To the other guy, I'm going to give you 2 bags. And to this guy, I'm going to give you 1 bag." Now, here's an interesting thing. I find it interesting, just like in life, he gave out different amounts. To one, he gave 5, to one, he gave 2, to one, he gave 1. Isn't that just like life? Don't we still do that today? Upper class, middle class, lower class. Now, some of you with the 1 bag are going, "Why did I get 5? I don't know." All I know is he gave 1 5, 1 2, and 1 1. And he said, "I'm going to go on a trip. You guys take care of it." And so they were in charge for whatever amount they were given to take care of that bag of silver. And again, just like in life, a different amount is given. A couple weeks ago, we celebrated Valentine's Day. And I was thinking, my wife and I was thinking back to years ago. Again, my kids were really small. And we were living here in Corona, again, being pastor of this campus. And my wife and I, Valentine's was coming up, and I'm like, "Hey, let's go on a Valentine's." So we planned it out. We were going to go on a little 2-3 day romantic getaway to Lake Arrowhead, and blah. And so we were going to go there and get one of those little cottages, those cute little cottages and all this other stuff, be a little romantic getaway without the kids and all this stuff. Of course, about a week before, a few days before, my car breaks down, just a normal thing. And I didn't get a Porsche this time. I went to the rental company, and they gave me some, I don't know, it wasn't a Porsche. I think it was a Pinto or something. But it was, and some of the younger people are like, "What's a Pinto? Don't you get those beans at Chipotle?" No, it's It's a car, and so I get this little piece of junk car. It's a rental. I'm driving it, and now it was one of those winters like it is now, where it's like crazy amount of snow. It was one of those seasons, right? And we start driving up the mountains, and it's like there's snow everywhere. And all of a sudden, we get pulled over as we're going up the 18, just starting to go to Arrowhead. We get pulled over by the police in a rental car. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything wrong. He pulls over and he goes, oh, it's a rental car from like Enterprise or something. He's like, pulls me over and he's like, your tags are expired. In a rental car. And he goes, well, you're going to pay the ticket. I go, it's not mine. He goes, well, you're responsible for it. I go, how am I responsible? So we get done with that. We keep on climbing up the hill. All of a sudden, it begins to rain and then start turning into snow. And I turn on the windshield wipers, of course, and on the rental car, the windshield wipers don't work. So I'm like, how are we going to make it? We turn around, we go back. I can't drive. So I literally tied a string to both windshield wipers, rolled the window down, controlled the steering wheel, and I'm going like this. Do the hustle, just whatever. And I'm driving up there, and I'm like, this is a stinking nightmare. All in a rental car. So then we finally get there. You go to the front desk, and then there's these little cottages, And so we go, and we check in, and I take our little bags over there, and it's snow everywhere. And I'm like, man, is there a place to eat? So I go back to the front desk, and I said, hey, where would you eat? And she goes, you can't get anything to eat. Everything's snowed in. She goes, I can give you a couple sandwiches or a couple little things, breakfast items from earlier this morning. She goes, but there's nowhere to eat. Everything is snowed in. I'm like, are you kidding? She goes, oh, and by the way, she goes, and your cable's out too tonight. I goes, what in the world? So I go back and I'll tell my wife, and I go, hey, man, I explained to her. Now, keep in mind, we're in a little cottage. It's Valentine's weekend. There's a romantic little fire. And it's just the two of us in there, and I go back and I go, this is all we got for food, and there's no cable. And this is my wife. She goes, well, this is just going to be a boring night. What are we going to do? I'm not kidding. She's like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. What could we do? What could we do? Let me think. What would the Lord lead us to do in this situation? So the next day, later on in the day, we were able to go out. So we go out and we start driving around throughout Lake Arrowhead and around the lake and all that stuff. And you ever done that before, where you're in some place, Lake Arrowhead, what doesn't matter where it's at, and you see these multi-million-dollar homes? And what do you think? Oh my gosh, how could they afford that? And then what do you think? Wouldn't it be amazing to buy that $10 million house? We all think that, because the reality is everybody's given a different amount. To one he gives 5, to one he gives 2, to one he gives 1. Here's the lesson. It's not about what you have. It's about what you do with what you have. I bet the guy with 1 was like, what am I going to do? I can't do, all I got is 1. Okay, the master knew he only had 1. Well, if I had 5, then I would do a lot. Let me tell you, if I had 2, then I would do a lot. The master's saying, I don't want to know, I'm not concerned about what you have. I'm concerned about what you're doing with what you have. That's what I'm most concerned about. And so we see this radical truth in the story. Then look at verse 19. After a long time, their master returned from a trip and called them to give an account of how they used his money. 3 things are found inside of this verse. Watch this. After a long time. Now, it doesn't say it was a week. It doesn't say it was a month. It doesn't say it was a year. It just says what? After a what? Okay, now, we don't know what it is, but let me help you understand maybe what it is. 5 bags of silver was the equivalent of 40 years of compensation. So here's the possible thought. After a long time being, from the day you start working to the day you're done working, 40 years. It wasn't after a long time, a week later. The idea is, I'm going to start giving you some resources, and then at the end of your life, I want to know what you did with those resources, which brings you to the second word. He called them to give an account. He's calling them together, and he goes, okay, this is how much I gave you. Let's see what happened during your lifetime, not during a week, during your lifetime. What did you do every week? What did you do every month? How did you handle the resources that I gave you? He talks about that. And then he says, now I'm going to hold you to an account. That tells me that at the end of my life, I got to stand before God now, and there's going to be an audit on my life. Now, how many have ever, now I know we don't like to admit these things, how many have ever gotten audited by the IRS? Come on, raise your hand up in the air. A couple of you, 1 or 2 of you. I have been audited by the IRS. Do you know how scary it is when you open up a letter from the IRS? And it said, no joke, it was years ago, it said, you are being audited. I looked at my wife and go, we're done. I'm going to prison. Now I got to take up smoking. I mean, what am I going to do, Got to start trading packs of cigarettes to survive. And I'm like, this is a nightmare, I don't want to be out. But I got to tell you something. There's an audit that's coming that we can't avoid. It's coming. Where I'm going to stand before a master and he's going to say, okay, let's see what you did with the resources that were mine. Let's look at it. That's an audit I'm like, ooh, that scares me, to think, man, God, that audit is coming. Now, notice the last thing. After a long time, we believe to be a lifetime, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how, hold on, here we go. Once again, they used what? Once again, it's as if they didn't get it the first time. One more reminder, 3 servants, it's mine. I just want to make sure that we're clear, it's really mine. And you might think it's yours, it's not. Okay? You're not sharing your resources with me. I'm sharing my resources with you. They're mine. And he reminds them once again, why is that so hard for you and I? Watch. Why is that so hard for you and I to come to that place where it's really his? It's because we're the ones that earn it. At least we feel like that. Hey, I earn this money. I'm a school teacher. I sell homes. I do mortgages. I do real estate. I got my own business. I'm an architect. I'm a construction worker. I manage a store. I'm the one that does that. I'm the one that gets it. And what we don't realize is watch this, he's the one that even makes that possible. If you're here today and you're like, oh man, I'm an architect, I'm a very skilled architect. Who do you think gave you that skill to begin with? Well, I'm a lawyer. Who do you think gave you that skill? I can build, I'm a contractor. Good. Who gave you that skill anyway? Throughout the Old Testament, it says it's God that gives the strength and the skills. So it's him. And we understand that. You don't share your resources with God. One more time. What? You don't share your resources with God. He what? Shares them with us. He shares them with you and I. They're not ours. We're sharing with him. He's actually sharing with us. Now let's go to verse 20. We're going to read quite a few verses, so follow with me now. The servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward and 5 more, said, Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 5 more. The master, watch what it says, was full of praise. Look what he says. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I'll give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Now, then the servant who had received 2 bags, the other guy, of silver came forward and said, Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned them. The master said, now watch, the master says the same exact thing that he said to the guy with the 5. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I'll give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Isn't it interesting that his response was the same with the guy who doubled the 5 as the same who doubled the 2? You know why? Because he knows who has what. He's not concerned about that. I'm going to honor you and love you whether you have 5 or 2, as long as you're doing exactly what I tell you to do, because his response is the same. Then the servant with the 1 bag of silver came and said, Master, 1 bag, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money. Isn't that interesting? So I hid it in the earth. Look, here's your money. We'll get back to it in a minute, but it is interesting. He said, hey, what'd you do with the 1? And immediately he blames the master. Oh, it's your fault that I didn't do good with it. You're the reason. He had an excuse right away. Look what it says. But the master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. Sounds like he's very happy. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest. Then he ordered, take the money from this servant, the 1, and give it to the one with the 10 bags of silver, because he doubled the guy with the 5. Now watch what he says in verse 29. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have, I'll take it away from them. It's really strong. And then he says, now throw this useless servant, that's nice, into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, 2 things jump out at me. The one guy with 5 goes, here you go, I doubled it. And he goes, well done, and he blesses him. The guy with 2, look, I did it, doubled it, well done. The guy with 1, let me tell you why I didn't do it. And he blames the master. I have a view of you that I can't trust you, that you harvest where you don't sow. I can't trust you. And you know what really I think the principle is here is? The guy with the 1 had all the excuses in the world. I can't trust you. I can't trust organizations. I only have 1. I can't pay. What could I possibly do with this 1? And he comes up with all these reasons and all these excuses on why he didn't do good with the 1. But that didn't work for the master. Because then the master turns around and says, you wicked and lazy servant, And he says, cast this guy out into the darkness where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, it's possible that that could have meant hell. But in one sense, maybe it would have been out of context because the story is about a boss and employees. And the boss can't send you to hell. He can tell you to go there. He just can't send you to hell. So it's a little out of context. So maybe when he says, just maybe, when he says there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth, it wasn't about hell. It was about the fact of living with regret. You didn't do everything I wanted you to do with the resources that I gave you. And two things. Number one, nothing good was done with the resources I gave you. And number two, I don't get to bless you and pour more into your life because you didn't even do good with what little I gave you. And he says, if you would just do good with that, I'll pile on more. And if you'll do good with that, I'll pile on more. And if you'll do good with that, I'll pile on more and pile on more. If you'll just do good with what I give you. Watch what I can do. It's such an incredible thing. But the real thing is that weeping and gnashing teeth, maybe it was about regret. You ever regretted anything? You ever got caught doing something you shouldn't have done or got caught where you were a little embarrassed? I was in Africa last year where I met our campus pastor, who's now the campus pastor, Pastor Tondo, who is our campus pastor in South Africa. And I was there speaking at a big conference there. And it was the funniest thing. They were doing their worship, in South Africa. And I love the worship. I mean, they're just like, they got dancers and all this cool stuff. And I kind of got into it. And then someone was waving at me. And so I started waving and goofing off. Someone caught it on video, put it on YouTube, entitled it White Man Dancing in South Africa. And so let me show you this little 30-second clip last year of me in South Africa. Here we go. Check it out. Clearly, I know how to dance. No, I don't. But it's the funniest thing. I was like, some guy about a week later goes, hey, dude, he goes, you're on YouTube for dancing. I'm like, what? And he told me what to put. I'm like, what in the world? So here's the thing, is that you do something, you get caught. You do something and maybe you have regret. You do something and you're thinking, well, I didn't know someone was watching. Understand something. There's someone watching when it comes to this resources, and that's kind of the essence of the story. There's 3 servants. They come back after a long time, which we believe to be a lifetime, and he says, I want to know what you did with the resources that I chose to give you that were mine to begin with. So what do we do with this story? What's the whole point of this story? Okay, it's pretty clear. Who's the master in the story? Take a guess. Who's the master? God, Jesus. Okay, who's the servants? Us. We're the, us. You can say it all together like you actually mean it. Us. There we go. Who's the servant? It's us. So what's the whole principle of this story? The real question is, which servant are we? Which servant are you? Which servant am I? Am I the one that says, man, you gave me this and I did some great with it and then you blessed me more and I did some great with it? Or am I the one that says, I just kept it to myself? Am I the one that ultimately he wanted to bless me more but I didn't because I kept it all to myself? Which servant I am? See, here's the thing about money. A couple things about money. Number one, it is a tool and it is a test. Money is always a tool and money is always a test. It's a tool to do good and or to do evil. But it's a tool. And then it's also a test because money more than anything else shows you which kingdom matters more to you, God's or yours. And some people say, well, if I just had more money, then I'd be more generous. No, you don't, because write this down. Money just makes you more of what you already are. That's all it is. You say, well, I'd be really generous if I had a lot of money. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. If the Spirit's not in you now and you haven't developed it in you, it wouldn't be later. Money just makes you more of what you already are, selfish or generous. And so here's what God is saying. God comes along and says, look, I gave these 3 servants, and to this one that doesn't, I'm not going to bless him in that way. But these ones, I'm going to bless him. It's a tool and it's a test to say, God, you are really number one in my life. So here's the big, big, big question. Put it on the screen for me. What are you going to do with what was given to you for the one who gave it to you? What are you going to do with what was given to you for the one who gave it to you? What am I going to do with that? How am I going to operate? That's really ultimately the big question. What are we going to do with what's been given to us? So here's the thing. We didn't talk about tithing today. We didn't talk about beyond our walls today. All I wanted to do was just straighten out the mindset. Okay? We're not sharing our resources with God. Help me out. He is sharing them with us. They're all His. And you know what is the most liberating, powerful stress reducer in your entire life is when you just go, here you go, God. It's all yours. And it's just so liberating. I believe this with all of my heart, that if we let go, we're trying to hold on to it with this bag of silver, if we let go of what's in our hands, He'll let go of what's in His. I believe that. And it's so liberating. Stress goes down, worry goes down, anxiety goes down. God, it's all yours, God, and however you want me to act and whatever you want me to do, God, I'm just going to do that. And then you know what He does? He comes along and goes, oh, I guess I can trust you. Here's some more. And then, God, I'm going to do that. Oh, I guess I can trust you. Here's some more. And then, God, let me tell you something. Week after week, month after month, year after year, this has worked in my life. The more I just say, God, it's yours, the more He just goes like this. It's the craziest thing, but it's a mindset. It's all yours, God. It's not mine. It's not mine. King David, one of the richest men who ever lived. The Bible says he was worth in modern times, or theologians believe in modern times, he was worth about $750 million. He was the second king of Israel, David was. And David, worth $750 million, he wasn't a broke dude. Second king of Israel said a prayer one day. Matter of fact, on your way out, you're going to get a little business card that has that prayer on it. And I want to encourage you, in just a moment we'll read that prayer, but I want to encourage you to take that little prayer, read it 4 or 5 times throughout this week. Let it be on your dashboard, let it be on your refrigerator, let it be somewhere on your laptop or whatever, but let it be somewhere where you see it all the time, and it takes 20 seconds to read through this little prayer that David said, but it's a reminder to keep our heart right and to shift our mind towards understanding that it's all His. Look what King David said in 2 Chronicles, one of the richest men who ever lived in the Bible, and the second king of Israel, what he said in 1 Chronicles chapter 29. Let's take a look at it. 1 Chronicles 29. It says, O Lord, the God of our ancestors Israel. This is King David prayer. May you be praised forever and ever. Yours, O Lord, is the greatness, the power, the glory, the victory, and the majesty. Everything in heaven. Say everything. Everything in heaven, everything on earth is yours. Everything. All $750 million that I have. It's just yours, God. It's yours. It's not mine. It's yours. How liberating to think that way. Wealth and honor. Let me see. Oh, heavens and earth is yours. O Lord, in your kingdom, we adore you as the one who is over all things. Watch this. Verse 12. Wealth and honor comes from you alone. Watch this. Now look at this. For you rule over everything. Power and might are in your hand. And I love this. And at your discretion, people are made great and given strength. Hold on. At your discretion, you can sell homes. You have the ability to start a business. You have the ability to manage a store. At your discretion, God, you give us that ability. Not only is He saying, God, the wealth belongs to you, but even the way that we earn it came from you. Amazing. And then he goes on to say, picks it up at verse 13. Oh, our God, we thank you and praise your glorious name. But who am I and who are my people? None of us, that we could give anything to you. How could we give anything to you? Because it's yours to begin with. And he says, everything we have has come from you, and we give you only what you first gave us. Everything's yours, God. And we just are giving to you what you first gave us. Because as we keep saying over and over, you don't share your resources with God, He shares them with you. That's what David was saying. So here's the thing. I want to encourage you. Read this thing 3 or 4 or 5 times. You're going to get one on the way out. Read it. Seriously, read it. Let your mind begin to shift. I'm telling you, it will be a stress, anxiety, and worry reducer if you'll begin to just say, hey, God, it's all yours, just like David did. Multi-gazillionaire says, Lord, it's all yours, not mine. You'll find it liberating. You'll find it fulfilling. You'll find it so freeing if you just begin to get that mindset. Here's the big thing today. This is the mindset that we're not sharing our resources with Him. He's sharing them with us. And once you get that mindset, you'll find freedom. Now, I want to challenge you today. There might be a few of you here today that, you've come into this place maybe today, and you got invited by a friend. Maybe you came here today, and you don't really, not walking with Christ. I'm talking about Jesus, I'm talking about God, and you're like, man, we're talking about money. Let me tell you something above this. Jesus is concerned with this. He wants to know He has your heart. He wants to know that you're in love with Him. And he wants to know that you have a relationship with you. You may have done that in the past, but you did not stay with it. Or maybe you came here today and you're like, I've never done that before. I've never really given my life to Christ. I don't want you to leave this room without at least the opportunity to open your life to Christ and say, Jesus, I need you. Let me tell you something. Jesus is the Son of God. He died on a cross so that you wouldn't have to. And he loves you very much. And he believes in you. And he wants a relationship with you. He does. And I'm telling you, it's amazing. So before we do any of this, for some of us that are kind of new to all this, let's get this right. And I want to give you an opportunity to do that right now. Would you close your eyes with me out of respect to the person next to you? And let's just pray for a moment. With your eyes closed and nobody looking around, would you examine your heart right now? Nobody moving. And just examine your heart. Ask yourself these questions. Am I good with God? Is he the center of my life? Have I really ever given him a chance? Am I just kind of doing things my way and not even keeping him in mind? He loves you. He wants a relationship with you. And if you'll just simply take a step towards him, he'll take a step towards you, and you can start a relationship today. If that is you, I'm not where I should be with Christ, but man, I want to get there today. I want to make it right today. If that is you, would you slip up your hand in the air and just say, yeah, that's me. Pray for me. Way up in the air so I can see it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you. I appreciate your boldness in raising your hand. Thank you. Thank you. All over this place. Anybody else? All over this place. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Yeah, thank you. You can put your hands down now. Now, I'm going to lead you in a prayer with your eyes closed. This is a prayer for you that raised your hand, and you're just making a covenant with Jesus. You're saying, Lord, you may not know all about God or all about Jesus. You're not sure about all of it, but God, I want a relationship with you, and I want to give this a shot. And I want to make a commitment to have a relationship with you. And we want you to pray this prayer out loud, but we're going to all pray it with you because we want to support you, because you are not alone on this journey. This church, this campus wants to walk with you on that journey. So would you say this prayer out loud with me? Everybody, in support of those that just raised their hand, out loud and proud. Come on now. Say, Jesus, today I invite you into my life. Wash me clean of all I've done wrong. Today, I make a covenant that I will follow you for the rest of my life. Thank you for dying for me. Thank you for forgiving me for all I've done wrong. And thank you for believing in me enough to leave heaven, come to this earth for me. Today, I give you everything. From now on, you're in charge. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, there are several people that raised their hand, but for the rest of us, could you show these people that raised their hand what we think about the decision they make? Welcome them to the family of God. Come on.